just a few moments ago by High Representative Vice President Kallas, and I would focus on the issue of trade, which, as I'm sure you would agree with me, is one of the cornerstones of the EU-India strategic agenda. And it is indeed essential to maintain steady efforts on both sides to strengthen the momentum. Trade between EU and India has grown by 90% over the past decade, and if you just look at the last year, 2024, we traded goods worth some 120 billion euros, making the European Union India's largest trading partner, ahead of US and ahead of China. Over 6,000 European companies now operate in India, employing 2 million people directly and supporting another 6 million jobs indirectly. So even in such a big country like India, this is very significant. I would also underline the fact that in just 5 years, EU investment in India has nearly doubled to 140 billion euros, making us one of India's top investors. And yet, I am absolutely convinced we have only scratched the surface. A commercially meaningful EU-India free trade agreement would unlock vast potential, and by tackling both tariff and non-tariff barriers, we can drive new waves of trade and investment. We can strengthen our supply chains, and we would help safeguard open, rules-based global commerce. Our shared ambition is clear: to conclude negotiations by the end of this year, but as always, steady determination will be the key. And we still have some ground to cover. As you probably know, I traveled to India last week. It was already my third visit this year in an effort to advance the negotiations, which have now reached 13 rounds. I must admit, however, that I hoped for more progress to be achieved last week. I remain in frequent contact with my counterpart, Minister Goyal, as there is undoubtedly much to gain for both the EU and India if we get this right, and this is on what we are focusing right now. Thank you.
Thank you to both HRVP and Commissioner Sefcovic. We open the floor to questions on the EU-India strategic agenda. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Zoriana Stepanenko, Radio Free Europe. My first question is for Commissioner Sefcovic. So given the fact that the European Union is proposing a new strategic agenda to raise bilateral relations with India to a higher level, are you ruling out the prospect of imposing the secondary sanctions, the tariffs against India following the step taken by the United States? And will you address the purchases of Russian oil by India at the next summit scheduled for the beginning of 2026, as High Representative Kallas just mentioned? And my second question is to High Representative. So presentation of the 19th sanctions package is delayed. Could you brief us how the coordination with the United States is going regarding this sanctions package and sanctions policy in general? And for now, plenty of the EU diplomats are voicing the concerns that the United States President, demanding from the EU to make the sanctions tougher, actually is looking for the pretext to postpone his own sanctions. Do you share this feeling, and how optimistic are you when it comes to reaching the deal on sanctions with the US leadership? Thank you.
The second goes beyond the topic, so I'll leave it to HRVP to see if she wants to address it now already.
Okay, so I'll start with the first part of the question. I think that you've been following the developments in the European very closely. So you know that if it comes to the imposing the sanctions and to fulfilling them, that I would say we are the most responsible international actor on this planet. I don't think that any other economy did more in that regard than the European Union, and I'm sure that HRVP would address this question. And concerning the Russian oil and gas, we have very clear plans how we are phasing out both oil and gas, and we even accelerated the pace how this should happen. And we have also very strong measures adopted against circumvention on our sanctions. So I think this is quite well known, and this will be the toolbox we will be using in this regard. We are, of course, coordinating very closely with the United States, but also with other G7 partners, because we believe that if G7 acts in the same manner, of course, the impact it's much stronger. And it was, I think, actually only last week where the EU special envoy for sanctions, David O'Sullivan, was in the US. They had an in-depth discussion on all aspects of this question. And as far as I know, this is the topic which is also discussed between the United States and India, because when I was leaving India, I understand that US top trade negotiator was just arriving to the New Delhi. So I believe that this is also the issue which they are discussing among themselves.
Yes, HRVP.
Yes, thank you. So partly already the answer was there, but the 19 package, we are working on this and closely coordinating also with the Americans. Of course, in the end, we are responsible for our decisions, and we have a very straight and understandable course. We need to be stronger on sanctions and move forward, and of course, we are trying to work together with our US partners to do the same. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Cornvels for Politico. I was wondering, is this the right moment to have a strategic agenda with India when indeed they are joining Russian military exercises and are increasingly buying more oil despite EU sanctions on infrastructure in India? How do you hope to, let's say, move forward from this particular moment that India is actually forging closer ties with Russia in this particular time? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This was the discussion also we had in the college, to be very clear that we are having clear areas of disagreement with India regarding these issues. Yesterday, I had also a call with the External Affairs Minister of India regarding these issues. I mean, participating in military exercises, purchase of oil, all these are obstacles to our cooperation when it comes to deepening the ties. And if you read the communication, it also addresses these points. So it is, of course, we are living in this very turbulent times, and we need to build partnerships. And the question is always whether we leave this void to be filled by somebody else, or we try to fill it ourselves. So deepening the ties also with India in order to really not push them to the Russia's corner was the agreement by the college.
Good. Yes, Joachim.
Hi, Joachim Clementi, Estonian Public Broadcasting. I think I have a rare opportunity of translation, so I'll do it in Estonian. Mis me siis teeme, kui India lihtsalt ütleb... Okay.
Seconds.
One of the languages still. Mis me siis teeme, kui India lihtsalt ütleb, et aga see ei ole meie mure, et me ostame Vene toornaftat ja seda rafineerime, et me käime Venemaa õppustel. Kas siis on ka variant, et me jätame selle vabakaubandusleppe sõlmimise lihtsalt katki, või me saame ka kuidagi nii teha, et ühe käega teeme vabakaubandust ja teise käega laome osadele India ettevõtetele mingisuguseid sanktsioone peale? Mis me siis teeme, kui India ütleb, et aga meid ei huvita?
Aitäh küsimuse eest ja võimaluse eest vastata siin eesti keeles, nii et te kõik kuulete meie ilusat keelt ka. Aga tõepoolest, need arutelud olid ja jäi just see kokkulepe, et meil peab alati olema võimalus astuda sammuke tagasi sellest ja olla ka väga selged, kui me räägime oma India siis osapooltega, et need on need takistused, mis meie koostööl ees on. Ehk siis, kui lugeda ka seda kommunikatsiooni, mis me selle uue India strateegia kohta oleme esitanud, siis seal need tingimused on ka sees ja see, et kõik neid tingimusi peaksid tõstma. No, kui me mõtleme, siis Indial on sellest suhtest sama palju võita, kui Euroopal on sellest suhtest võita. Ma arvan, et see on mõlema huvides ja seetõttu on mõlema huvides ka võtta arvesse nii Euroopa muresid ja siis huvisid kui siis vastupidi. Nii et see on alati kahepoolne, aga need on need probleemid, mida me kindlasti tõstatame ja need on need probleemid, kus meil esialgu siis ühtset arusaama ei ole.
Yeah, Joachim, may I have a follow-up?
On võimalik, et see plaan jääb lihtsalt siis katki ka, kui neid tingimusi India kaasa ei tule selle kõigega.
Läbirääkimised on alati läbirääkimised ja kuniks ei ole kokkulepet kõigis tingimustes, ei ole kogu kokkulepet. Nii et see on alati ka meie meeskonna, läbirääkimiste meeskonna suur ülesanne kõiki neid asju arvesse võtta. Nii et jah, seni kuni ei ole kõikides tingimustes kokku lepitud, siis seni kokkulepet ei ole, aga see huvi nendes tingimustes kokkuleppele jõuda on mõlemal poolel olemas, kui me võtame arvesse nii huvisid, muresid, kui siis neid probleeme, mis meie suhtes on.
Yeah. Thank you, David. David.
Yes, thank you, David Carretta, Radio Radicale, Italian radio. To be clear on this point, do you think that if India, at the end of the year, beginning of next year, will still buy Russian oil and have a closer relationship with Vladimir Putin, the Commission should conclude, so give its agreement to the free trade agreement that you are negotiating, and you should conclude at the end of the year at the best. Thank you.
It's the same question as before. I don't know if you want to add anything, HRVP.
I think the discussions we also had was whether it's possible to completely decouple India from Russia, considering their history as well. I don't think we have illusions regarding this. The problems we have between ourselves in the relationship are very clear, and we are trying to address them in the negotiations as we speak. So if everything is not agreed, then nothing is agreed in the end, whether we reach the agreement. Thank you.
Yes, here please.
Yeah, so Chris Powers from Euractiv, also a question for the HRVP. So you mentioned that you spoke with your Indian counterpart, among other things, about the Zapat exercise. I was wondering if you could tell us anything more about their take on this, why they did it. This particular exercise is not any ordinary one, it's one that's directly targeted against EU countries in the Eastern Flank, including, if I'm not mistaken, your country. What's their take on this? Why did they participate?
Well, I'm not communicating on behalf of India, so you can ask them the arguments on that side. We will meet in person as well, because this is a great concern for our countries. I mean, if you want closer ties with us, then why participate in exercises that are existential threat to us? So to be very clear in this message is that we are not taking this lightly, but I will not, just reflect on our conversations and be communicating on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Razia Akoch, AFP News Agency. I just wanted to clarify then, if I'm not wrong, you haven't what India has said to the EU about those military drills. It wasn't quite clear what that position is. And if you will allow me to get philosophical, I think potentially this question is for you, Madam Kallas, but maybe for Commissioner Sefcovic as well. Because in terms of trade, it's such it's a priority for the European Union. And we're in the age where the concept of the rules-based international order, I mean, that's a whole other philosophical debate that we can go into. But considering trade is mutually beneficial for both sides, I'm then asking you whether trade can be separated from this agenda, because I read the document, you speak about defence security, but will trade always be something that you'll continue on? Because as you yourself said, you have no illusions about whether this can change. So I just kind of wanted to ask about whether, because trade is, I mean, it's so geopolitical and so separate from the issues of yesteryear and the way that we look at it, and you mentioned shift in paradigm once upon a time yourself. Just wanted to know if the European Commission is looking at these issues with a bit more maybe pragmatic, realpolitik view. Thank you.
Thank you. If you look at the communication, you can see also that it has different parts. And when I'm talking about also these concerns and disagreement, it's about the defense and security partnership that we are building. So the trade relations, of course, we also need it's mutually beneficial, and the trade people are working on that. But our teams are addressing also the concerns we have in other files, because it definitely impacts our relationship. So clearly we are in this world, like you say, that world order is changing. It is in our interest to defend the international rules-based order, and it's also in the interest of India to defend this. So considering the breaches of the international law, we should be on the same side.
Yes.
Allowed to complement the answer of HRVP. I think what is very important, and it's our constant message to our Indian counterparts. Of course, we are fully aware of enormous potential for our mutual trade. Of course, we saw all very impressive projections how the Indian market and Indian economy would grow. And I was making a different public events in New Delhi last week. The huge accent on the fact that we are the biggest trading partner for India, that thanks to the European company, there is 8 million people employed in India. And if we would have the free trade agreement, that this was clearly grow. So the potential is clearly there. But what is, I think, very, very important, and that was the message when we've been leaving the New Delhi, what we need is commercially meaningful, fair agreement. And I need the understanding of my Indian counterparts that it must be fair and balanced, because this is the very important free trade agreement, which, of course, in the European Union has to be approved by the member states and by the European Parliament. And they will look at every single aspect of this agreement. And therefore, we have all the understanding of the fact that India is developing fast, that we have different starting positions, and we also set very clear baselines from where we are starting, where we would like to conclude and to end. But in the end, of course, everything has an impact on these negotiations, because we had to create also political ambience, political climate, that we have a good deal, which is fair, which is balanced, which is commercially good for both partners. And, of course, it has to happen in the atmosphere where this agreement would be supported by the member states and by the European Parliament. But the discussion which we have today, and I would like to thank High Representative Vice President for presenting our relationship with India from all aspects, because it's about strategic choices. And clearly, India is a strategic partner from any angle you would look at it. If you look at it from the geopolitics, if you look at it from the geoeconomics, if you look at it from the potential point of view, if you look at it from in which region India finds herself, and also the history and potential future of our cooperation. So from this aspect, the decision also by the college was that today we will have a thorough discussion. We will adopt the strategic communication, and of course we will communicate very sincerely and openly about this discussion, about the pluses, minuses, the challenges which are ahead of us to our Indian partner. Because only through the discussion and sincere and honest debate you can forge strong relationship, and this is what we want. And that was the spirit which we all felt when we've been in New Delhi as a whole college, talking to the whole government, I think in the first time of the history of the European Union. That was the place where the India for Strategic Partnership was created, and that was the moment when the leaders decided that we should do our best to achieve this free trade agreement. So we are now in this process, and nobody hides that it's difficult. It's very difficult. As you know, the Indian negotiators are famous for being tough. So I think we are going through these phases, and I can only tell you that we always defend the European interest. We speak very clearly to them. We are listening to their answers, and we are building this partnership, which I think would be very important for us now, but also in the future.
Yes, please. In the back.
Sabina Rossetta, ANSA, thanks for the floor. In the joint communication, there is the willing of conclude an agreement on geographical indications. Is EU ready to recognize the basmati as Indian? Thank you.
Now we're in super nitty-gritty rice questions. So, of course, if you are talking about rice and India and basmati and Pakistan and all these things, so I think we could be here for a very, very long time. What I would like to say is that this is, of course, one of the issues which is on the list, which was discussed, which will be discussed. I was very happy that my good colleague, Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Hansen, was there with me, so we can really have very frank and open exchange on all categories of the agricultural products. But I would prefer to inform about the results once this chapter is closed, and it hasn't happened yet. So there is still work to be done, and once it's done, I'll be very happy to come here with Christoph and inform you about the positive outcome.
Very good. And we'll take the two final questions on EU-India strategic agenda. Jorge.
Hello, Jorge Liboreiro with Euronews. We spoke a lot about Russia, but there's another big important country with which India maintains very close relations, and that is China. How do you position this closer partnership between EU and India in respect to China? How do you see this playing out in this geopolitical chessboard? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. I think this is part of the bigger picture. This is clear when we look all around the world. Then, if we are not building those partnerships, then this void is filled by China and other actors. And if we look at the geopolitical power, really, we need to have those partnerships, and that's why we are moving also forward to find additional partners to counterweight the economic might that comes from China, or the problems that we have with China regarding economic coercion, regarding unfair trading practices, and therefore our answer is to build a relationship with other countries, including the biggest democracy, India, the large and growing economy like India is. Thank you.
And we take a final question. I see a hand there.
Thanks very much. High Rep, this is for you. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't understand. Are you saying it is a condition of the EU for India to stop purchasing Russian oil for this strategic cooperation to go through? And secondly, if we could get clarity on, is the EU planning to impose tariffs, as reportedly Washington wants, up to 100% on India? And for the Trade Commissioner, could we get some sort of an understanding and update on how's the conversation going on agriculture tariffs? Is the EU being a bit more considerate, as the Indian diplomats would put it, towards their concerns in the agriculture sector? Are they listening to your concerns when it comes to auto industry and other areas? Thank you.
Thank you. What I was saying is that we have clear areas of disagreement that we need to address with India, which is also, when you read the communication, the problems that we have, the proposals also that we have on the table. So the relationship has to be mutually beneficial, which means that, it has carrots as well as sticks, if you put it this way, that the concerns we have and the benefits that could derive for both parties from these relationships if the worries and interests are taken into account. Thank you.
And Commissioner?
And on your second part of the question, I think that from the beginning we've been very clear that we are ready to be considered. I mean, that was one of the I would say first decisions which have been taken, that there will be certain difference about the percentages of the number of tariff lines where we are going to reduce our tariffs. For me, this is not a mathematical issue as it is presented by some colleagues who are taking part in this discussion, because what I would put the accent on is that what we are putting on the table has to be commercially meaningful. Sometimes the number of tariffs is not actually telling the whole story, because you might have non-tariff barriers, you might have different kind of measures through which say administrative power, you actually are making it for the businesses very, very difficult. So for me, also, I would say this part of the negotiations, like, for example, the QCO's question, so-called qualitative controls in India, are quite important, because this is what I hear from our businesses and from the industry, that it's something we should definitely look at. And on, I would say, the agriculture parts, again, it was, I think, first meeting I had with my friend and esteemed colleague Piyush Goyal, that simply some of the sensitive products for the both sides we just leave aside if we want to make a progress, and we know which they are. I think we agreed upon them early on. Therefore, I was really hopeful that with all this understanding, we could close agriculture chapter already last week. Unfortunately, it was not possible. We'll have another try, but we also need the understanding from Indian side that we also have our constituency, we also have our audience, and I have to bring the agreement to the member states, European Parliament, and my colleagues in the college who would support it, that it has a chance not only to be agreed between us, but fully ratified, implied, and bring what we in European Union strongly believe: much bigger investment, much bigger trade, and much more jobs created in India, but also in Europe, thanks to the growth of the trade. If it comes to the cars, of course, for us, this is an extremely important element of our negotiations. I think those who are familiar with the current landscape of the level of the tariffs, you know that they are one of the highest in the world, and therefore I think that we would both benefit with the discussions how we are going to lower them, how India can benefit from the European know-how, and how India can also benefit from the fact that there are also European car companies who are ready not only to sell but also to build the cars in India, and to contribute also in this way to the further and faster industrial development of this country. So we discussed the different landing zones, what could be done in that regard. Again, we will not be able to conclude the discussion on this, but I think that we understand each other points much better than before. and it would help us to prepare for the next round of discussions and negotiations. And I believe that if we would have what I think in the last mile is usually the most important political will to conclude, we will.
Thank you very much to both. With this, we conclude this part on the new strategic EU-India agenda. We will now be joined by Commissioner Suica and remain in the company of HRVP Kallas and Commissioner Sefcovic to address the other point on the agenda of today's college, which concerns the package of proposals on EU-Israel relations. So while we wait for Commissioner Suica to join us, I'll already give the floor to Commissioner Sefcovic to address the trade part of the measures with regard to EU-Israel relation. Commissioner Sefcovic.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, HRVP already presented the broader context for this decision in her initial opening remarks, where she was reading out the discussion around this topic in the college. And she provided the broader context for this decision. So I can now turn to the proposal at hand, the suspension of core trade-related provisions of the Euro-Mediterranean Agreement in relation to Israel. This proposal is grounded in Articles 2 and 79 of the Agreement, which establishes the respect for human rights and democratic principles as essential elements for our partnership. The proposed suspension targets tariff preferences granted to Israel, encompassing free movement of goods, right of establishment and supply of services, public procurement, competition and intellectual property. In practice, this means that imports from Israel to the EU will lose their preferential access to the EU market, and that these goods will be charged duties at the level applied to any other third countries with whom the EU has no free trade agreement. We regret having to take this step. However, we believe it is both appropriate and proportionate given the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The Council will decide on this measure by qualified majority, while the European Parliament will be duly informed. Now turning to the trade relationship between EU and Israel. Total trade in goods in 2024 amounted to 42.6 billion euros. The EU remains Israel's #1 trading partner. In 2024, the EU accounted for the 32% of Israel's total trade in goods. In light of these figures and the principles at stake, the proposed partial suspension is a carefully considered response to an increasingly urgent situation. Let me reiterate that since the atrocities of October 7, the world has witnessed unimaginable suffering. The European Union immediately condemned in strongest terms Hamas' indiscriminate attacks across Israel and expressed solidarity with Israel's right to defend itself. Sanctions against Hamas swiftly followed. The President of the Commission, together with the President of the European Parliament, been among the first political representative to be there on the ground. And they share the impression, the shock and horror they have seen in these kibbutzim in Israel. And therefore, we believe that now is the time that we must work together to end also the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This means unrestrained access for humanitarian aid, the immediate release of all hostages held by Hamas, and an urgent ceasefire to stop the bloodshed. Ultimately, Israel needs real security, and the Palestinian people need real dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sefcovic, and Commissioner Suica to present the other element of the package of measures. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. As Maros already said, the situation in Gaza and in the West Bank is unacceptable. As Commission, we continue to advocate for a two-state solution, one based on a secure Israel and a viable Palestinian Authority. So we are doing it with words, but also with targeted actions. Today, we are putting bilateral support to the Israeli government on hold. I'm talking about bilateral support. This is an important signal and the continuation of our policy of advocating for peace. In particular, €14 million of already allocated funds in the period from 2020 to 2024, and out of this amount, €4.3 million have been contracted, while 9.4 million remain uncontracted. Until further notice, we will not proceed with the joint identification of new actions on the signatures of the contracts. This is a decision the Commission can make independently on the basis of exceptional events, like in this case, and can be revoked if conditions on the ground change. As announced, what we are not putting on hold, which is very important, is €20 million allocated for measures to fight anti-Semitism and foster Jewish life by supporting Yad Vashem. Likewise, €10.2 million for civil society will remain untouched. The European Union's support to peace-building initiatives via Israeli and Palestinian civil society will also continue, with an average allocation of €5 million per year. Concrete actions again. To do our part in sustaining the two-state solution and making it possible, we continue supporting the Palestinian Authority and their reform process. We will provide, as already announced, €1.6 billion over the next 2 years under our multi-annual comprehensive support programme to the Palestinian Authority. This is important as they are facing an increasingly precarious financial situation. The programme already made a difference on the ground. For example, salaries to teachers at Palestinian schools could be paid at least partially last week, coinciding with the start of the school year. Yet, as you know, our funding is not sufficient. The European Union is the biggest donor and supporter toward the reformed and efficient Palestinian Authority. In this moment of great need, we are enhancing our engagement with the Palestinians. As our President von der Leyen announced, we will establish a Palestinian or Palestine donor group with the first meeting still this year. Our aim is twofold: support Palestinian institutions financially via donations of like-minded international donors, Arab states, international and regional organizations, and international financing institutions. Then serve as a forum for the Palestinian Authority to present the reforms implementation, ensuring transparency. They also need to ensure transparency, and engage on the future of Gaza and coordinate international recovery and reconstruction efforts once the conditions allow. In terms of governance, the Palestinian Ministry of Planning and International Coordination and the Commission would co-chair this group. We have opened the path for Gulf countries to join us in this effort in a prominent way. This platform will catalyse efforts of regional and international partners, and this is the moment to invite others to join us and pledge their support as well.
Thank you very much, also to Commissioner Suica. And we can open the floor to your questions now. Mark, please.
Good afternoon, Mark Peperkorn, Volkskrant. It's a question, I think, for Commissioner Sefcovic. I mean, the total export of Israel to the EU last year was about 16 billion euros. The effect of now, let's say, the new tariff agreement or the stopping of the preferential tariffs has an effect, we were told, of about 227 million a year. So it's relatively modest. So my question is, why do you think this modest proposal would change the behavior of Israel in Gaza? Thanks.
Your numbers are correct, but I think that here we are talking not only about the trade and not only about the numbers. I would say the whole context of decision was very political, so I think the HRVP would be a better position to comment on this. But you also heard the President of the European Commission be very clear on this particular element when she was addressing the peoples of Europe, European Parliament members in the State of the Union, and of course, based on that announcement and political commitment, we've been acting very quickly to present the proposal. I think there was strong expectations that European Union have to use the tools at its disposal to address the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza, to make sure that not only we provide the humanitarian aid, but the humanitarian aid actually will be delivered to Gaza, to the people who would need it. But I believe that two of my colleagues are better positions to further elaborate on this question.
Would you like to come in? Not necessarily. No, we move on. Yes, please.
Hi, it's Nacho Con from the Spanish newspaper El Confidencial. I would like to know, especially from the High Representative, why now exactly? Why not a year ago or a couple of months ago? A year ago, there were already 40,000 deaths in Gaza. So why specifically in this moment the situation is such that these measures are needed, and not why a year ago? Thank you.
Thank you. We all heard the speech of the President of the Commission, where she proposed these points. And I think this shows how the situation has really changed. We see the E1 settlements. We see also the action now in Gaza City. All these things that bring more suffering to the people. So this is why today is that because a week ago we had the State of the Union speech where President von der Leyen proposed these things. Thank you.
Yes, Mattia.
Yes, hi, Mattia Bagnoli, ANSA, the National Intelligence News Agency. Hi, Rep. Now, naturally, the question is, will the member states approve the question that you put forward, the issue that you put forward, the proposal that you put forward? And there are two tracks here, because the sanctions against the ministers and settlers and all of that requires unanimity, and those on trade, QMV. Now, you, as a chair of the FAC, can you tell us a bit what is the atmosphere in the room? Do you have confidence that at some point these proposals will be adopted, either in QMV or in unanimity? And if not, what does that tell us a bit about the state of affairs of the EU? Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, you're correct that the sanctions require unanimity and trade proposal, the QMV. You know very well how is the situation in the Council. Although we see that the public opinion in member states is really shifting because the suffering in Gaza, and people really want to see the stopping of this suffering. On political level, I think we will have the discussions after these proposals are made, but I think the political lines are very much in the place where they have been so far.
Yes, Rafaela, please.
Rafaela Scheidreiter for the Austrian broadcaster ORF. If I may, a question on measures against Israel on a different level, but High Representative, as you mentioned, like the public opinion, right now we see also how political entertainment and culture are becoming when it comes to Israel, in particular when we talk about also the Eurovision Song Contest taking place next year in Vienna, and seeing member states like the Netherlands, Spain or Ireland threatening to not participate in case Israel will participate. So as the EU's most senior diplomat, I'd be interested in what are your thoughts on this? Thank you.
Thank you. What I want to stress, and what we stress all the time, is that we are proposing these measures not to punish Israel or Israel people, but to really try to pressure Israeli government to change course and to end the human suffering in Gaza. So that's why the proposals that we have made are not really touching or somehow affecting the people so much as to put the pressure on Israeli government to change course. So all these steps that go to the direction of punishing Israeli people, I think, are wrong, and we are not proposing them. Thank you.
Philippe?
Philippe Jacquet, Le Monde. I have another question which is not related to the EU-Israel agreement, association agreement. It's the ban of the products from the settlements. And I'm still wondering why the EU is not moving on this particular subject.
If it comes to the products from Israeli settlements, I think that this is the question which I'm sure that you know very well. They've been in any way under the association agreement trade parts, which we are suspending right now because we never recognized that especially the settlements would constitute the part of the state of Israel. And that they should be covered by also the measures which we are now taking under the association agreement. So, if it comes to banning of any imports of the good, again, it can be done through the sanction proposal. And that's something to be discussed in the future. I think that today we've been focusing on the trade parts of the association agreement, and I think that's quite important step also from the political perspective we are adopting today.
We'll take the two final questions. I have one question online from Gabriele Rosana.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thanks for taking my question. Gabriele Rosani, Messaggero, Italy. It's a question on something that, if I'm not wrong, is not in the package, because several former ambassadors to the EU have recently called for additional trade-related measures, including export control measures and the suspension of all arms and dual-use exports to Israel. So what is the reasoning, if I may ask, Commissioner Sefcovic, behind the exclusion of such measures from today's package? Thank you.
I think that if it comes to the military-to-military cooperation and military exports, that's more in the domain of HRVP, but I understand that this comes into the exclusive domain of the prerogative of the member states, and it's covered by the different regimes. Therefore, I mean, we've been acting in the area where we have, in this case, exclusive authority, trade parts of the association agreement where we can make the proposals, where you need the QMV from the Council to endorse it and approve it, and where you need to duly inform European Parliament about the proceedings. But of course, the military and dual use, that's a different category, so I don't know if HRVP would like to address this question.
Anything to add there?
No, I mean, of course, you can always ask why don't we propose other things. These are the things we are proposing right now, and that is the discussion. Yes, in June I presented an options paper where all the options are listed, what are the tools in our hands, but these are the choices that the Commission made right now. Thank you.
And we take a final question here. The lady.
Thank you very much. It's Rosie Burchard here for DW. So first of all, for Commissioner Sefcovic, could you give us a few words on how you think this will impact European businesses and consumers? You've talked a lot in the past about how tariffs are a tax on consumers. For Commissioner Suica, I think the measure that's within your portfolio is the only one that might not be caught up in institutional deadlock among member states. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can be done just by the Commission. So in the past, we've heard the Israeli government levelling criticism that any such punitive measures are essentially empowering Hamas. Can you respond to that criticism or a claim from the Israeli government? And then for High Representative, presumably in the past, part of the calculation for not putting such measures on the table is the risk that they get caught up in the member states. That risk remains. You've addressed it a bit already, but have you basically just changed your calculation in seeing that it's better to look like you have something on the table in the works than the risk of looking like you have a total inaction until now? We know that we might be here in several months' time and that none of these measures have moved forward.
Thank you very much. So I can start with the numbers. So preliminary estimates based on current trading volumes indicate that suspending preferential access would expose EU exports up to 574 million euros in duties. On the other hand, the EU imports from Israel would be exposed to the tariff duties up to 227 million euros. Around 63% of the EU imports from Israel take place on most favoured nation terms, and 58% of trade with Israel benefits from zero MFN tariffs and hence cannot benefit from any preferential regime. So less than 37% of EU imports from Israel are imported under this preferential regime, which is affected by this decision. If you ask me which sectors would be the most exposed, so from the EU side, this would include machinery, aircraft-related goods, medical devices, and pharmaceutical products. And as you know very well from all our discussions, we are not friends of tariffs. I much more prefer to come in front of you to tell you that we created new market access. We have a new free trade agreement. We are opening new trade chapters with our partners. So therefore, today measure is of different kind and was necessitated by a clear commitment our President presented in the State of the Union address the last week as a reaction to the dramatic, urgent humanitarian disaster taking place in Gaza.
Yes, Commissioner Suica.
Thank you very much for asking this question. So, as I already said, we are putting today bilateral support to Israeli government on hold, and this is something which we can do, what we can do independently, and it is exclusive right of the Commission. I want to reiterate something. This is very targeted, and we want to be crystal clear. And we want to make distinction between Israeli government and the Israeli people, Israeli citizens. And this is what we have been doing. Any money, any funding which is related to anti-Semitism, any money which is related to civil society organizations is not put on hold. This is very important to understand and to differentiate this. So we are trying to put pressure, as you see, because we stand with or by Jewish citizens also here in Europe who also suffer a lot. So this is exactly why I'm mentioning anti-Semitism. So what we want, I want to reiterate that all of us agree on several issues. Two-state solution is the only alternative for us. There is no other alternative, so there is consensus on this. Also on humanitarian aid, also on ceasefire as soon as possible, also on right of Israel to defend and to exist, also on release of all hostages. This is something where we have consensus here in Europe. So I hope that we will find solution in the near future, but this is a situation at the moment, as we speak, is very dire in the Gaza City, as you know.
Yes, thank you. First, I object to the statement that was in your question that we have been inactive. That's not true. We have been the most active actors on the international sphere on this file, trying to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground. Really, day in and day out, working with what more can we do. Yes, the proposals now on the table to put more pressure on Israeli government derive from the State of the Union speech. And yes, it's true that the College has not proposed, but now it's up to the Member States to discuss in the Council, which is problematic, as we know, of the lines. But what it shows, really, it shows that the public opinion in all the Member States has really shifted, and when we have the discussions, all the Member States or representatives, foreign ministers agree that the situation is untenable. So if we all agree on this, then the question is, what do we do about this? What are the tools in our hands? And that's why we have proposed from our Commission to go with these proposals. If these do not fly, then we can find other things if we all agree that we need to do additional steps in order to have really change on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three members of College present with us here today. Thank you for your participation and questions, and to the interpreters. We wish you a good afternoon.